Hello, hello. Happy Monday again. Hello, everyone. I'm coming to you again on a new edition, new series, new episode of the Mothering and Matrescence Mondays. I am going to be joined by Rocio Zunini, who is already here, and she's going to join us now. Yes. Scientists, hi everyone. Let's see if that's working now, if Rocio can join me. Yes!
Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you? It's very bright here.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
Okay, so Rocio, welcome.
Thank
To
you.
this Mothering and Matrescence Monday. So Rocio is a neuroscientist and she works supporting families, and she has an approach based on the science of the parenting brain. And this is what's the topic for today. We're going to talk about the parental brain. And for me, it's a fascinating topic. I found whenever I read, or the more I learn about it, I'm not that expert. I have a lot to learn, and I'm still learning. So I'm happy to have you here, so I can learn more about you from you. But I find this topic so interesting because when it comes to matrescence and the process of becoming a mother, there's so much that changes within our brains, and not many people know about it. Certainly, this wasn't something that was talked about when I was on the antenatal class or preparing for during pregnancy or preparing for birth or anything like that. So I think it's a topic that it's almost like a quite, like a secretive thing because nobody knows about it. So Rocio, please tell us a little bit of, first of a little bit about yourself. If you could introduce yourself really quickly, and just tell us, what do you mean by the parental brain?
So, hi everyone. I'm Rocio, and as Jasmine. So, Jasmine, should I call you Jasmine or Jasmine?
Either. Jasmine is fine. Let's try Jasmine.
Okay. Yeah, we both speak Spanish and English, in case everyone don't know. So, her name can be pronounced in both ways, I guess.
Multiple ways.
Yes. So yeah, as Jasmine said, Jasmine, I'm a neuroscientist, and I thought that I would die in a lab doing research, which by the way, I wasn't researching the parental brain. I was actually researching the aging brain. But when I became a mom, then I became interested in all things development, and then I became a mom again for a second time, and then I started to get more interested in the parental brain, and I started to connect with a lot of parents, and they will ask me questions, and then I just started thinking, oh, what if I leave the lab and I just do this? Because I could actually read the studies and translate it, because of my training, I could read complicated scientific data and then translate it. And like you said, nobody knows about this, and I was like, this is knowledge that everybody needs to know. Everybody. Like,
Yeah.
I always say, we are in school for what, like 12 years, and then university, and like nobody teaches the basic things that we need to actually know.
Yes.
So I decided to focus then on the parental brain, and I read a lot of the literature, and I keep reading, obviously, because science is always evolving. And I developed a course, and I decided to educate parents and professionals. I, like a month ago, had a summit about the parental brain for
Very great.
professionals.
Very good. I was there, and it was great.
Yeah, people love it. The professionals really, really love it. So I think I fill up a little bit of a gap there. So I'm gonna do it every year, by the way. I'm thinking of doing it for parents too. So
Oh, perfect.
All things parental brain. So what is the parental brain? So basically what happens is that when we become parents, our brain becomes very, very malleable, very plastic. And so why? Because we need to actually care for someone extremely dependent on us. They cannot talk to us verbally. So we have to learn all about this little person, and how to make them thrive. And so our brains become very unique at this time. It's a window of opportunity that we have, that our brains become very plastic again. Like the time there was more plastic before, that was during adolescence. And then the next time is when we become parents. So it's a very special time for our brains.
Definitely, definitely. And it's interesting that, because that when we talk, so what I work with, what I specialize in is on matrescence, and is that it's almost that trigger, right? What happens in that brain, which kind of mirrors that with what happens in adolescence. And so what happens, what is the, what actually happens in our brain? How does it change?
Yeah, so the scientific term for the network in our brain that is active when we care for a baby is called the parental caregiving network. So there's a series of, it's a huge network that inside has several sub-networks that all become very malleable and rewired. So there is, for example, the reward network that becomes very active when we smell our baby, when we carry our baby. It wires all the dopamine circuitry, where the baby becomes the stimuli, or like the drugs, I'll say. Yeah, that's why it's called the reward network. And that network is what makes us actually make lots of sacrifices because we really enjoy the smell of our baby, and it's what keep us, for example, and it's what keep us doing all the things, clothes, changing diapers 24/7, breastfeeding, all of the things, right? Put our needs sort of second place, and although our needs are important, but like we really give a lot to this person. And so we can thank that to our reward network that becomes activated. Then the other network that also, there is a bit of an echo. Can you hear me?
I'm hearing you fine.
Okay.
Just a little bit of echo, but good.
Okay. Then there's also the emotion regulation network, which again becomes malleable and is very, very important, because we need to be emotionally regulated to be able to regulate the baby. The baby has an immature nervous system, right? So we need to really work on our emotion regulation network, and that's why it becomes malleable, but it's also vulnerable, right? Because with malleability comes vulnerability, and so this is what we see also depression or anxiety at this time, because our brains are vulnerable. And then there's the empathy network that also becomes very plastic, and this is because we need to put ourselves in the shoes of somebody else like never before. And so again, our empathy network becomes very plastic. So yeah, the parental brain is this really huge network of interconnected sub-networks that all work together so we can provide synchronous and sensitive care to the baby.
Okay, so we've like three different things, right? So we've got that reward system that helps us bond with our baby, that create that connection and makes us want to be more with them. And then the regulation, I'm very interested in this one particularly, the emotional regulation one, because I find that well, first, how does that how can we support ourselves, and how by doing that are we influencing our children? So that emotional and co-regulation aspect. And the last one was, what was this last one?
The empathy. There's other nerves too, but yeah, that's the empathy that are very important.
Yeah. So that is almost kind of, so we understand more feel more what the other person or the other babies are experiencing, and more empathic about it.
Yes.
Okay. So before we go into the detail, I want to ask you, does this happen only to parents who are birthing parents, or is it happening to fathers, or how does it work?
Yeah, no. So non-birthing persons also can experience changes in their caregiving network. There seems to be a universal caregiving network because as a species, we thrive on communal raising of children and alloparents. So scientists think that like our brains are more flexible to wire for caregiving babies than other mammals, let's say, because we have in our DNA that we need a village, which, by the way, is another reason why there is so much wellness during postpartum, because we're not meant to raise in isolation. And our brains are vulnerable, and then we lack the village. And so it's one of the problems. So yeah, everybody has the capacity to rewire the brain as a result of caregiving. I always think that probably people that work in daycares have a, caregiving network that is very active. Adopted mothers have been shown to have, I don't think they have looked at their brains per se, but they look at their oxytocin levels, for example, and they are different, they are higher. In adoptive mothers. And fathers, of course, they absolutely experience the same changes that we do slightly differently, but their brains are very malleable too when they become fathers. And I wanted to say something else about, and that studies are also found, for example, that our brains are very sensitive to the cry of an infant. Whether we're a parent or not, our brains activate way faster when we hear crying an infant than other sounds.
Okay, yeah, well, that's super interesting. I found, and I from my own experience, I remember that listening to that cry of my baby was like something that suddenly just sparked something. It's like a fire within me that I couldn't don't do anything about it, right? So I had to respond to that baby cry. So, and saying that, how does that parental brain affect someone's behavior or way of acting? Or
yeah, so it's not like something automatic, obviously, because remember what I'm saying is that the brain becomes malleable. So that means it's not like they were like we switch something and then we become this mother or father. No, our brains all of a sudden acquire an immense capacity for learning, right? And so how do we learn? By watching our baby, not by following a schedule or following a what's the expression? Cookie cutter advice. I was getting confused. Cookie cutter advice. Yeah. No, we change our behavior. How does the parental brain affect our behavior? Well, by looking at our baby, and then we provide the behavior that they need, right? Like that over time is gonna, and then it also changes. It seems like it's a forever thing too, because our children grow and go through different stages. It's very different to parent an infant than parent a 10-year-old, for example. I have a 10-year-old now. I'm very confident in the infancy area, and that's why I educate professionals about it, but I will not dare educating about like what to do with a 10-year-old. I'm learning. I don't know.
Exactly. So then our brain keeps changing.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. As we move throughout, the parenting years, I guess. Yeah.
Yes. So far, the longest longitudinal study is being 6 years postpartum, and yes, they're still changing. So I would imagine it's like until our children are adolescents, our brains are still rewiring because we're always learning, and our behavior, our parenting behavior, is adjusting to what our children need.
Okay, so then we've got a malleable brain, we've got a perfect tool to learn, which is our baby.
Yeah.
And then how do we make or help our brain help us, I guess, or keep developing? What can we do?
That's a great question. What can we do? I have a whole course about it.
Maybe the top tip.
Yeah. So one of these the most important things is to take care of our regulation, our nervous system regulation. That's paramount, is essential. And so what do we do? So there are many things we can do, but like now we know that, for example, the nervous system wires bottom up and top down. By that I mean bottom up is that through our senses we wire our nervous system through our body unconsciously, because there is a lot that is unconscious in our autonomic nervous system regulation. So taking care of that part of our nervous system is very important. Going for walks in nature, listening to music, all the things that we intuitively know if we're connected that we will do that are good for us. It's important to take time for that, even if it's like 5 minutes a day. And then there is also what I call or what scientists call top-down emotion regulation, which this is more cognitive, so journaling or things that are more cognitive. And both together is what makes the biggest contribution to our nervous system regulation, because sometimes we might just try journaling and it doesn't work. For example, we are forgetting the unconscious part of our autonomic nervous system that we need to take care of. So that's a tip I can give. And then when we regulate our nervous system, then we are more ready to empathize, because this is why I say it's essential, because if you're not emotionally regulated, and we all have been there, we cannot empathize. I'm like the least empathic parent when I'm like not regulated, right? So it's like they have to go hand in hand together. And when we're emotionally regulated, then we can empathize and like observe our baby with curiosity, with wonder, you know, and really wire that other part of our life. I don't know if that answered your question.
No, absolutely, I'm just a little bit unsure about the unconscious what did you
nervous
regulation?
So because of our autonomic nervous system, there is an unconscious part, right? That we is our body memory.
Okay. Is that things like that? So you said like walking in nature, like listening to music. So meditation and doing those practices, where does it is that part of that?
Breathing essential. Breathing is actually has been shown now by hundreds of studies that breathing changes our autonomic nervous system, and it's very important.
Breathing, moving our body, so everything has to do like with our body.
Exactly.
Yeah. Perfect. Great. Lovely. So, and then how does that influence our children? And I found this super interesting. I mean, and then of course it's like an immediate influence, that the moment that we're more empathic with our children, you're able to respond better to them, to be more conscious parents. But how does that influence their own brain development?
We're literally building their brain. We are building their brain, and this is why it's so important, because for better or for worse, we are building the brain. Like we can do
consciously or unconsciously, we're doing it.
We're doing it. So that's why it's important to do all these things that I'm talking about, because whether you want it or not, you are contributing to building your baby's brain. And so how? Well, it could. The goal is that they grow up in a secure, safe environment that we provide, right? And we provide that with the parental brain through empathy, like I said, because when we do that, they feel seen and heard, and that's essential for secure attachment, right? And and secure attachment then really means a healthy brain, essentially, right? So a resilient brain.
And it's because there's a lot of advice of, you know, you should there's a lot of parenting advice out there, and some of them might be things like sleep training, or how do you know what's a parent? How can we inform someone that what parenting advices can support the parental brain and the baby brain development?
Yeah, So
Are there any principles?
yeah, essentially, because there are so many advice, and like because I used to have one-on-one sessions, and parents will ask me things, and I hate to tell parents, don't do that or do this. I don't like that.
Yeah.
And so I essentially developed a method so that parents can go through, like if they are given an advice, they can filter this advice through the parental brain, I call it. So basically, how do you know? Filter it through your parental brain. So essentially, you can ask yourselves questions like, how does it feel like for you to do this, follow this advice? What is your baby doing when you follow this advice? Observe your baby's behavior with curiosity. What's happening? Is he crying? Is he telling you that he doesn't like it? Then you should question this, look for another opinion, or
Try a different way.
a different way.
Yeah, and I always find that, especially when we become parents and we are new, baby's little, and something that we're just learning, right? So we don't know what's right and what's wrong, and there's a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of advice, and then women or moms, we're not that confident. We're in a very vulnerable time, so we feel like every other people's advice is better than what we think is right. But so I guess there's, with this, knowing that there's those changes in your brain, and that your own brain is supporting you through this process of becoming a parent, I suppose that that's quite helpful for everybody to know, so that you can trust a little bit more what's inside you and what you think and what you feel, rather than just trusting everyone else's advice, no?
Absolutely, and that's why I do what I do, exactly because of what you're saying, because only knowing this, maybe somebody is listening to this and some apparently lacking confidence, and then they listen to this live talk, and it could make a huge difference just knowing that they have this network, right? So yeah, it's so important that we all know this information.
Yeah, absolutely. So is there anything that can hinder or affect the development of the parental brain?
Yeah, many things. So like I said, because it's a vulnerable time, so anxiety and depression can definitely affect it. Like if we don't have access to treatment or don't have treatment, it's important because that affects how we connect to the baby, right? Like it's been shown in studies that during postpartum depression, there is less synchrony with the baby, for example. So it's very, very important to get support as soon as possible if this happens. Also, your childhood affects your parental brain as well. So yeah, this has been shown too. I have a whole class on this, and it's been parenting practices are transmitted intergenerationally. This has been shown with rats, with monkeys, and in humans as well. And so that's why another very important thing is to look at our childhood and see if there are cycles that we might be able to break. Of course, we might have nurturing cycles that we transmit, but if there are cycles of non-nurturance that we see, that we become aware of when we do the child work, then we can break those cycles as well, because otherwise it also is related to how our parental brain wires.
Yeah, absolutely. That's super interesting. And I find that I always talk about how matrescence and mothering and parenting, it's such an opportunity to grow and to heal your own childhood trauma.
Yeah.
But I never thought about, I always thought it was a great opportunity and an opportunity to heal personally for yourself. But actually, it has an impact on the parental brain, and therefore on your child's development, right?
There's not a lot of studies directly showing this. There's like a couple that, for example, look at their, for example, if there was at the security, at the attachment of the mother. okay, and whether they were secure or insecure. And those that were secure, their brains were different. They responded differently. And as well, if there was trauma, relational trauma early on, there was also differences in the way the amygdala responded to cries, for example. But not a lot of studies, but there are some, yeah.
Yeah. So is it like a new area of study, or has it been there's a lot of research? I guess for what you say, there's not a lot of research about it.
It's a new area in humans. In rats has been done for a while now, all the intergenerational transmission of caregiving. But in humans, there's just like a couple looking at trauma like that and secure attachment. Yeah, it's very hard to conduct. You guys, you can imagine, to recruit mothers to see what attachment they have to put them.
Of course, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you. So is there anything else? I think we're coming to the end of the half an hour. So just to close, I would like to ask you if you have any advice or any tips, or how can someone who's listening to this live and saying, oh, I didn't know this, how can someone start working towards supporting their own paternal brain? And then how can they find help from you?
Yeah, so again, the most important thing is take care of your nervous system. So do everything you can. And I know it's hard in the way our society is set up, I know. But what are we going to do? We can't just complain. I mean, we got to take radical responsibility, I guess, and do something, right? Do what we can to take care of our nervous system. So yeah, just have a little practice every day. Put there 5 minutes, if you have 5 minutes, or more if you have more, to do one thing that you really, really love, like just going out for a walk or something. And yeah, you can find me on my Instagram account, and there you can just go on the link in bio and see my offers. Right now I have a parental course, but this is for professionals that if anybody wants to join, still welcome to join.
Perfect. Okay, thank you very much, Rocio. It's been lovely to have you, and hopefully we get to do this again, and probably next time in Spanish.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Bye, you too.
So that was Rocio Zunini, and she is a neuroscientist. For a chat, we had a conversation about the parental brain. And if you couldn't see it, or you're just joining now, I'm going to post this in my grid so you can watch it. And all right, I'll see you for the next Mothering and Matrescence Monday next Monday. And have a nice week. Bye-bye.